Hello again, welcome. It's a brand new week on TNT. Thank you very much for joining us. Tim here with Dina the cat. The two cats have been going absolutely crazy this morning. I'm not sure what I fed them last night. I think they've been taking their happy pills. But it's a beautiful day down here on the southern island of Phuket. Much better than what's been happening up in Bangkok over the past 4 or 5 days, although it has started to dissipate. So thoughts with all the people up in Bangkok who have been suffering greatly, either just trying to get to work or having a lot of their homes flooded and their cars ruined. But we'll talk a bit more about that today and a whole lot of other things. Thank you very much to our sponsor, 5 Star Marine. You can find them at 5starmarinephuket.com. There's a link in the description if you don't feel like typing all that out, if you'd like to make your way out to one of the beautiful islands of Phuket. But let's get started with today's program. And yes, here we are for a brand new week of Tim Newton today. I really appreciate you dropping in. If you do get a moment, it would be great if you could subscribe to the channel, because apart from being able to organise some alerts when the new programs are up, it also helps our statistics and all that YouTubey stuff. So thank you very much for joining us today. Let's head right into today's news and follow up from last week's sad passing of the Queen of England, the Queen Elizabeth II. Acting Prime Minister Prawit and Defence Minister Prayut signed condolence books for the passing of Her Majesty last Friday. The Acting Prime Minister Prawit Wongsuwon and the Defence Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha visited the British ambassador in Thailand on Friday afternoon to write a condolence message. The message from the General Prawit, who of course is the caretaker Prime Minister. I've learned with profound sadness of the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. On behalf of the Royal Thai Government and the people of the Kingdom of Thailand, I'd like to extend our deepest condolences to you in this time of sorrow. Also noting that a letter was sent to King Charles III by the King of Thailand. Queen Sudita and I, as well as members of our family, are profoundly saddened by the announcement of the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And noting a bit further down, we also remember with pride and warmth the 2 state visits Her Majesty made to Thailand in 1972 and 76. Our condolences, our hearts and prayers are with Your Majesty, all members of the royal family, and the people of the United Kingdom in this time of mourning and grief, and that from the King of Thailand, Maha Vajiralongkorn. Also note that people in Phuket, if they would like to sign a book of condolence, it's available at the Australian consulate. So that's in the bypass road. If you go to phuket-go.com, there's an article about, basically it's when the consulate's open, you'll be able to go in there and sign the book of condolence. To some more domestic issues, and sink or swim and troubled waters, 2 headlines in the Bangkok Post today. And obviously we know what that's about. Let's check the sink and swim story. Sink or swim for the new governor, that's Governor Chadchat. And noting that the Bangkok Governor, Chadchat Sitipun, who's now been in the position for 3 months, he's had a pretty wet 3 months, faces some major challenges if he wants to solve the flood problems. Noting that story says that the worst hit areas have been Don Muang, Chang Watana, Pahanyotan, Bangken and Lat Krabang. Over the past 4 years, this is a note from Siri Supradit, the director of the Climate Change and Disaster Centre for the Arangsit University. He says over the past 4 years, Bangkok, its neighbours and some provinces, including Rayong, that's to the east of Bangkok, have been affected by heavy rain and flooding. I'm as concerned as you are, but don't be trapped by the 2011 floods. The real thing is yet to come. Basically, sort of warning people that there could be some worse flooding on the way, and that preparations certainly need to be made. And he says that 3 of the city's main canals have already hit their full capacity. Remembering that 100 years ago, people used to wax lyrical about the Venice of the East, Bangkok with all its canals. Well, most of those canals, the klongs, have been filled in and replaced with major roads. So you don't get around in a boat anymore, you get around in a car. Although last week you've been getting around in a car sort of wet halfway up the window. But yeah, the problem for Bangkok is that you've got rising sea levels, you've got more water coming down the Chao Phraya, you've got a sinking city. I think they're saying it's some 2 to 5 centimetres average each year over the past 50 years. So it's a problem that's not going to be solved just by hoping that the rain will go away. More of that article. The canals, a central element in the city's flood and drainage infrastructure, are overwhelmed as a result of the heavy rain, reaching an average of 100 millimetres each day. So let's just sort of put that in perspective. Where I come from in Melbourne in Australia, it's sort of seen as over the winter and the spring quite a wet place. The wettest month there is November, I checked this morning, and the average rainfall they get for the month of November is 64 millimetres. And Bangkok has over the past week been getting in parts more than 100 millimetres per day. And in some places they measured up to 146 millimetres of rain in one day. So torrential rain indeed. And noting that the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation says it will install 21 additional pumps to speed up drainage in Bangkok, and that the BMA has been requesting more. The problem is that this is all very well to pump the water out of the city once it's arrived. The problem is they've got to stop the water getting into the city in the first place. That's when all the damage is done. So it's a long-term problem for Bangkok. It's not going to get any better. And the sooner they can sort of get their heads around that and plan for the future, something that is not a common feature of the Thai government, the better, because Bangkok is just going to continue to have more of these floods, and the floods are going to be worse. And heaven forbid they have another situation like in 2011, where most of the car manufacturing was completely flooded out. Some people had to wait up to 2 years to get cars that they had ordered because a lot of the factories were simply destroyed. To another story from the Bangkok Post today, the cannabis bill to go before the Parliament, noting here that Pantep, a vocal supporter of cannabis-based medicine and spokesman of the committee, said yesterday the bill will be sent to the Parliament today with a decision on whether to accept the bill, likely before September the 19th. So this is not even debating the bill, this is just accepting the bill in the first place, noting that the decree to decriminalise cannabis was made back in June the 9th. And they're still debating whether they're going to accept a cannabis bill, which hopefully will clarify a lot of the confusion that still reigns over the issue. Noting this story in the Bangkok Post, the bill will let households grow up to 15 cannabis plants for domestic use, household farm cannabis for use of the roots, trunk, fibre, blah, 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 blah. The one thing that article doesn't cover, and I think everybody wants to know, is can you smoke marijuana legally, recreationally, in public, and can you sell it, or grow and sell it commercially? This is the elephant in the room, because people are. You go to the tourist areas and it's freely available at the moment, which my understanding of having read the first draft of the Act is not what it's saying at all. So I think with the genie out of the bottle and this bill yet to be discussed, we've still got a lot of months to try and sort out exactly what this bill means and what you can and can't do, and of course what the police can arrest you for or not arrest you for. People want to know. To our next story today, and from the Tiger, and new ferry cruise between Pattaya and Samui completes its test run. Actually quite a fine looking boat there, very big ferry indeed. And last night, Samui Cruise hosted a launch party in Koh Samui after its test run for a new cruise ferry. And the boat journey takes about 12 hours in either direction. So the idea being that you jump on the ferry, I suppose at either end, and you'd get on the ferry about 5 p.m. and at 8 a.m. the next morning you wake up in the new location. So sounds like a good idea. Let's get to some of the details. You can buy anything from a reclining seat, a capsule bed, first-class private quarters, and the prices for a room would start around 3,000 baht, which sounds like a lot of people would go for that. They could have a good night. Could be a popular weekend activity, a bit of a staycation here in Thailand for expats. And the ferry boat doesn't skimp on facilities. It's got restaurants, spas, massage services, variety of nightlife, blah, 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 blah. And of course, it can carry cars and motorbikes. So just noting the end of that story, when regular service is launched, the ferry will run between Chonburi province from the Chuk Samed Pier in Satahip and the Natom Pier, the largest pier in Koh Samui. Just did a quick map which might help you out here. The Chuk Samed Pier, as you can see there, south of Pattaya, near Rayong, in Satahip, and that's making its way to Koh Samui with the red line. Now that is, if you are travelling from the centre of Bangkok, that's going to be about a 3-hour drive for you to get from Bangkok to the Chuk Samed Pier. But I was thinking maybe if they had the ferry going from right down the end of the Chao Phraya River, a pier there, it's not a huge boat, so I'm sure it would be able to get up those southern areas of the Chao Phraya and be able to tap much easier into the 12 or so million people living in Bangkok. And the yellow line there would obviously be a slightly longer route, but I would have thought it would be quite popular for Bangkokians to have a weekend in Koh Samui if they were able to do that. Anyway, I'm sure these people have a lot more money than I do, and they've already done their research. Okay, to our next story today, and Thai PBS World reporting that a teacher held by police for allegedly hosting drinks parties with students at a resort, noting that a Thai male school teacher has been held and charged by police after he allegedly took 9 males and female students to a resort. So, of course, the questions here are, is this a benign act of friendship towards the students, or is there something else going on here? A member of staff at the resort told police the teachers had rented 2 rooms. When they opened one of the rooms, they found 9 students between 13 and 17 still in the uniforms with the teacher. They also found liquor and soft drinks. One of the female students, down to the second last paragraph, told the police that the teacher in question has taken students to the resort for drinks and parties before, and noting in the bottom sentence, police have initially charged the teacher with improper conduct in accordance with the Child Protection Act. So clearly quite inappropriate for a teacher to be taking 13 to 17-year-old students, maybe without the knowledge of their parents, we don't know, but then engaging in drinking alcohol and stuff, which for Thai students under that age, is obviously illegal. To some regional stories, reporting in the Straits Times, quite a lot happening around regionally. From the top left there, the Indonesia's fuel price hike. How will the move impact everyday life? And the Indonesian government not being able to suppress the cost of diesel in the same way they have, for example, in Thailand. Eventually that will catch up with them here in Thailand, but in Indonesia, the prices are really starting to run. Other stories there, energy price rise wreaks havoc with EU budgets, low labour costs, strong investor interest drawing Singapore startups into Vietnam. Malaysia's former Prime Minister Abdullah Badawi has dementia, and Japan plans to scrap daily arrival cap by October, noting that Japan has had a cap on the number of people allowed to arrive in the country in the wake of COVID-19. So good to see that they'll be opening up, hopefully more people being able to arrive in the country. To other stories covered on the front page of the Straits Times, UK-based Singaporeans brace themselves for higher costs of living amid energy crisis. Queen Elizabeth's coffin arrives in Edinburgh as mourners line streets, and coverage right around the region, of course, still for the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. And US President Biden vows vigilance against new threats in speech on 9/11 anniversary. And to the Korea Herald today, and President Yoon to attend the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II in London on September the 19th, and a story there 3 years after the No Japan boycott, sentiment towards Japan starting to thaw, been quite a tetchy relationship between South Korea and Japan over the years, basically going all the way back to the Korean War and the way the Japanese treated Koreans. So that no Japan sort of boycott pops up from time to time. But I also noted today that the most popular destination for South Koreans at the moment is Japan and also Thailand. And with that information and news, I thank you very much for dropping into TNT. Thanks for watching, and thank you very much to our sponsor, 5 Star Marine. Appreciate their support of the program. I appreciate your support of the program as well. Hope you have a fantastic Monday, and we look forward to speaking to you tomorrow.